You guys are able to hear me, see me? All right, let me quickly share my screen. Are you able to see my deck? Yes, no?
Yes, it's visible.
All right. All right, in the interest of time, let's go ahead and start. Quick introduction about myself. Rajan here. I work as a senior scrum master in a service-based industry. Today, I'm here to talk about why do we really need to move from the way of working from a project style of way of working to a product way of working. That's the agenda of this session. Feel free to interrupt me anytime and we can have a lively discussion. That's the whole motive of this session. Hope you're able to see my screen. Let me minimize this one. So this is the agenda of this session. Okay, first we will have a quick introduction. Then we will look at different revolutions that happened over a span of time. Then how industries got disrupted. What was the inspiration, or how did it influence to design a kind of a framework called flow framework? And then we will look into the basic concepts of value streams and lean principles. We will try to look at differences between the way of working between a project and a product. And then we will see how we will have to plan for disruptions. And then we will look at problem statements, look in detail about the flow framework, uh, uh, discuss about different disruptions that happened in the real world, and then we will try to solution for the disruptions and what is the shift that we'll have to make from the way that we are working from a project style to a product style. So the basic agenda of this session is how we can fine tune the way of right now if we are looking at way of working from a project to a product way of working. That's the basic agenda of this session. Are we clear on the agenda? Feel free to interrupt and let's have a discussion though. Are we clear on what we are trying to discuss?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
All right. So now let's get into the, let me put it on. All right. Okay, so we will see why we need to really shift from the way of working from a project style to a product style. Okay, there's a guy called Mike Kirsten. Okay, he's the one who introduces this framework called flow framework. So basically, he had worked for Eclipse IDE open source projects, and he had led many teams. So as a part of his PhD program in the early years, he was trying to do his PhD program, and his specialization was in how to measure productivity. So as a part of his PhD program, he was trying to interview the academicians, industry leaders to understand what do we really do currently to measure productivity. That was his question, and that was pondering in his mind. How do software delivery as such measures productivity? That was his specialization in his PhD program. So he had had discussions with many stakeholders. In the first case, why do we really need to measure our productivity? So in terms of, we need to measure in terms of what an individual has worked, how we can differentiate between which team is working better than the other team, how one outsourcer is better than the other outsourcer, or in terms of from an organization standpoint, are we really productive? So for all these kind of questions that needs to be answered, we should have this kind of metrics in terms of software productivity. That is the whole whole information that we are going to get in terms of measuring software productivity. So when he was interviewing all the stakeholders, there was a standard line of answers that what he got. Some were talking about line of code, some were talking about velocity, story points, some were talking in terms of time, cost. But all these answers were not convincing for him for a simple thing. Say story points are basically for kind of estimations, or even if we take velocity, it is just to measure in terms of teams. Above teams, it is not possible to measure in terms of productivity. And in the worst case, I cannot compare a velocity of one team with the other. That's the basic funda of any agile principle. Or are we really talking in terms of whether I'm able to deliver a particular activity on time, within the cost, within that budget? Though time and budget can be one of the factors, it cannot be the final D factor to making sure that we have delivered an productive software. The outcomes are more important where we are not able to measure that. That's the question that was pondering him. Parallelly, what happened was he was seeing a lot of digital transformations, DevOps transformations, agile transformations. More often, they were failing. And one reason that he found out when he interviewed all the stakeholders of these companies where the transformations were failing was they were trying to measure wrong metrics in terms of how many teams are moved from Agile, how many deployments have been made, how many trainings have been taken in terms of Agile, where they're all kind of proxy metrics, but really not pointing to the actual business outcomes. So one thing that what he found out was we are not actually measuring the metric that what we need to measure. So that was something that was pondering. So how do I go about? How do I change this way of looking at things? And parallelly, there was a DevOps community 3 years back, which came out with a survey saying that only 8% of agile teams actually deliver as planned. 20% of the source code that what was done or developed is not at all used by the actual business. There are a lot of items that were waiting in line, basically in terms of bandwidth issues. So there's a clear indication that planning is not there. There is no kind of measuring things were not there. So when he was trying to interview all these industry leaders on where is the problem, looking at where is the problem, the question that he was asking and the answers that what he got was basically IT was considered as a cost center, not as a profit center. Cost center meaning I used it as just an enabler, just like any other department like finance, marketing, where basic objective of using an IT in an enterprise was to reduce cost. How am I helping the teams, other teams, not like an revenue generation teams? And more importantly, software development was not transparent or visible. It was kind of a black box. Business did not understand what the development team was doing. Neither the development team understood fully of what is needed from the business. So there was no clear handshake that was happening between the business and the developers community. So this has to be broken. So in terms of measuring software productivity, parallelly, he was trying to look at, he went to a plant, BMW plant in Leipzig in Germany. Something fascinated him was that it was typical, they followed a lean process. It was a production line and there were moving parts of cars going from the start till the end. So everything was visible. Whatever work that the plant did was transparent. Now, the question that he asked was, if a product or a car or any product can be made this way, where it is transparent, there is some kind of an assembly line, there is a flow that is going. If we are able to see what the work is being done, if there is a bottleneck, people just jump in and make sure that the bottleneck is rectified, and there is a flow that is going on. If a product can be made this way, his question that he asked himself was, why can't I do the same thing, emulate the same thing in the software delivery? So that is the starting point for Mike Kirsten to come out with this framework called flow framework. So basic objective of having this flow framework was to be transparent, unblock this black box, make sure that everybody are in the same page, everybody understands what they are working, so that the main objective of having this flow framework was to measure software productivity. And everybody agrees on what is the measure and what is the metrics, and then they try to improve upon it. So we are going to talk about this flow metrics, and this flow metrics is the way of how I move from a project-based work style to a product-based style. So quickly moving on to, so one thing that what he found was, he saw a pattern. So in all these technological tech revolutions that happened over the years, over centuries, so he tried to classify this tech revolutions. The first one is industrial revolution, then came the age of railways, then steel, then oil and gas, then came the software world or digital software age. So these were all the tech revolutions that happened over each century. So he was trying to look at patterns, okay, and then he's tried to segregate this into three periods. One is the installation period, the other one is the deployment period, and then the turning point. Okay, so what he tried to understand, he's tried to look at the previous history of how different revolutions or how different tech changes happened and how companies shifted and made sure that they are successful or they fall behind. So the basic thing is he's looking at the past to make sure that future is ready for us in terms of disruptions. So when he tried to classify, when he tried to look at these patterns, the first pattern that he saw was installation period, where there are a lot of new technologies, new players, many players come in, startups come in. There is already a industry with 100 years, 200 years experience. There is a guy who's a startup who's coming 1 year, 2 years, trying to compete with this 100-year, 200-year company. Many players come, and these startups try to disrupt an age-old industry where people pump in a lot of money. Financial capital is pumped in. That is the stage where the first stage is there are a lot of players. New startup companies, new companies try to compete with the existing companies, and a lot of money is poured in. Many players are there. Next comes this deployment period. This deployment period is now the industry comes to a maturity level where there are no lot of players, few players. One try to dominate the other. They try to master how to produce in n numbers. Now from the financial capital, they move to a production capital, meaning they build many big infrastructures, big companies. Now from many players, they have very few players who master it. Now what happens, startups cannot compete with them. Startups try to look at new technologies, new things. So they try to move to a new markets. That's how the pattern goes. In between this installation period and this deployment period is the turning point where there is a churn that happens. There are crashes, there are recoveries. So the industries that are able to establish their footprint will be able to survive. If not, they will not be able to survive. So what he understood was from the previous history was there are three periods. One is where many players come in, they put in money, startups try to compete with the age-old industry. Then comes the deployment period where very less players, either of one wins, either the startup wins or the big player wins. And then it is just a mass production, n number of mass production. Now startups look at new market avenues. Currently, we are in a kind of a deployment period where the startups comes in and looks at cloud, looks at AI, looks at big data, data science. They try to move out and get into a new technology. Turning point is where crashes happen, recoveries happen. Either they perform or perish. So he found these patterns, and what is fundamental in this kind of footprint is disruptions are going to happen at any cost. The one that Microsoft had yesterday was a typical disruption where it interrupted every segment, every business. So these are going to happen. Now, as an enterprise, how do I handle it? If I am able to handle it as a company, we will win. If we are not able to compete with startups, we will not be able to win. If we are not able to look at new technologies, new markets, we are going to lose. So the whole idea that what Mike Kirsten is trying to look at is anticipate disruptions, look for new market and avenues, and then try to sail from there. So that's the point of this technical revolutions. He's looking at the past centuries, and he has come out with some kind of a pattern where there is going to be a shakeup that is happening. And we, as a company, we got to be agile enough, looking at the market demands and then moving forward. That's the whole point here. Now, look at disruptions, okay? look at how Uber it's just a startup with a normal UI screen, 2 or 3 UI screens, was able to disrupt not just the mobility transport section. It disrupted the car segment, manufacturing industry, almost everything. Look at how digital phones disrupted banks, airlines. So everything was disrupted here. So small startups are going to disrupt age-old, century-old, 100-year, 200-year-old companies. That's something that we'll have to focus on. And it is not just IT, irrespective of which sector, which domain we are going to get affected. And more importantly, what he saw was it is the non-IT companies which are doing a lot of IT spending in these years. He's giving an example saying that Bosch, for his digital experience, was trying to recruit almost 20,000 IT professionals for his digital transformation initiatives. There was a disruption called Equifax. Equifax is a kind of a company which is an age-old company which specializes on data protection. It is a master in data protection. It has got n number of clients. But one day, with just one data breach, what happened? The CEO had to fall, and then the irony was he was trying to blame an operations guy, single employee. So just because he did not do his kind of activity. So the point here is, however big the company is, there is going to be disruptions. We all know the example of how Nokia fell. Take for example Tesla. The example that Tesla is, it makes less number of cars than an age-old company called Ford, but the market capital of Tesla is much higher than Ford. The point that we are trying to look at is, as long as companies look at new market, new avenues, otherwise we are going to get disrupted. So we are going to look at disruptions, look at new markets and avenues. In 80s and 90s, you would have seen camera like Kodak, right? There will be a film roll on Kodak. Kodak's competitor was not Fuji Films. Kodak's competitor was digital photography, right? There was a new kind of innovation that happened that completely disrupted an age-old company. Say, for example, Netflix. Netflix started as an CD renting guy, right? He started renting CDs, but this digital media came in and completely changed the picture. Today's, say, newsprints. Indian Express competitor is not Times of India or Hindu. Rather, it is the digital media. It has to come to the footprints of digital media. So innovations happen. We got to either grasp it or we will be able to vanish. Today's electric vehicles, 70% is software run. Take all these Olas, Aethers, all these 70% of its parts are not engine driven. There is nothing other than engine in either of this Aether Elo. 60% is software driven. So that is how innovations happen. So there is going to be automation, there is going to be autonomous driving. So there are a lot of avenues in terms of disruptions that are going to happen. And more, the point that we are trying to make is, there are going to be disruptions. At the same time, software is going to be the king in terms of deciding the future. That's the point here. Now, when we look at disruptions, it can be segregated into 3 parts. One is the infrastructure model, the other is the operating model, and the other is the business model. When you talk about infrastructure model, there's this very minimal impact. The way of working of how you do doesn't change. It is just a marginal change. Say, for example, marketing way of change. Say you're trying to make a product, the way of how you market changes. You would have to do digital marketing or something, but the way how I make this product is the same, but the way of how I offer that product to the customer changes. So very minimal change, which doesn't affect your workflow other than minor changes or tweaks there, then that kind of an disruption is called an infrastructure model. Operating model is altogether a different thing, where there is a user interaction with the business. When there is a user interaction with the business and there is a digital experience that happens, online tickets that when we travel, or say mobile apps, the number of times we visit a bank today, 10 years back from now, is marginally reduced, is reduced altogether, right? We use the mobile app to do anything. So the online bookings, that what we do, completely cut off all the agents, all these middlemen guys. So there is a disruption here, but this disruption happens whenever there is an interaction between the business and the customer. The third one is more about it is impacting the complete workflow. You have a workflow or you have a process, and the entire process changes. Say, for example, supply chain management, inventory management today has changed from the way of how it worked 10 years or 5 years back. So when there is a change in the way of how a workflow works, then it's a kind of a major impact. So either of any of these disruptions will fall under any of these three, and we are looking at this. So the point here is disruptions are going to happen. Technology is going to be the lead factor in designing innovations, and that's how an enterprise or a company should go about. Now, okay, so he went to this plant and he saw this. This is the exact picture of how the Leipzig, Germany plant would look like. Now, if you look at this, the conveyor belt or the production line is at the elevated level, right? The left-hand side is the production line. The right-hand side is where people sit. So it is designed in such a way that the production system is not a black box. It is transparent. You see the moving parts of the car. They just first try to assemble the chassis, then they paint, then they come into a product, a full product. Now, any problem in this kind of a production line or a conveyor belt, these guys sitting here will be able to know from the dashboard. So the IT sits here, the business sits here, the leadership team sits here. So the whole plant is designed in such a way that it is co-located, and there is an understanding between the business and the IT development team. There is an understanding between the leadership team and the IT department. So this is what that the question that my question was, if this can be made for a car, why can't this be made for a software delivery? What is stopping us from doing that? So that's the question that he was trying to ponder on. So the whole idea of designing this plant was to provide a value. What is the value that it is providing? I want to provide produce a car which has good mileage. I want to produce a quality car. I want to produce a comfortable car where there's a comfortable drive. So some kind of value that is being provided. More importantly, it is around the bottleneck. Anything that happens in this kind of production line or the assembly line, people will be able to quickly look at the rework area and they try to rectify it and then start the assembly line. So this is what fascinated Mike Kirsten, who is the founder of this flow framework, to come out with the same kind of an idea with some changes to it. So whole thing that it's no more a black box, it's visible, it's transparent. Why can't I make an IT product same like how this car is being built? So that's the point that he was trying to emulate. Now, before going into this kind of an flow framework, there are some basics that we need to know. So in terms of, we'll have to look at lean principles, value streams. Okay. What are these value streams? Value streams are some kind of a sequence of steps. Okay. Sequence of steps that I do to produce some kind of a value. It can be a product, it can be a service. Say, for example, I am a hotelier or I am a restaurant. I am trying to come out with some kind of a value stream. One value stream would be, look, okay, if I am a restaurant, as a customer, somebody will come to me and try to first book a table, right? And then once he comes to the table, he will try to order food. Then there will be some kind of a food delivery. Then we will get some kind of a feedback from the customer. Then there will be some kind of billing. So you're saying some series of steps. He is your kind of a candidate for you generating revenue. He comes in, books a table, orders food, gives you a feedback, then you get money, right? So the value that what you get is some kind of a revenue. So that is the value that you get. Now, the benefit of having these kind of value streams is it's a kind of a sequence of steps. I am able to visually see what are the steps that I have to do to generate value. Value here is money, the revenue that was. So it's a kind of a logical flow from a concept to a cash. So visualized effect of end-to-end activities. It can be either a product or it can be a service. That is what we talk about value streams. Now, value streams again is a kind of can be segregated into an operational value stream and a development value stream. So one value stream would be, say, operational, the one that we are talking about, the top line here, right? This is nothing but your operational value stream. That is, from a business standpoint of view, I have a potential customer. He comes into the hotel, gives the feedback, orders food, gives the feedback, gives a bill, and there is a cash that is. These are the sequence of activities that he does. This is from a business standpoint of view. Okay, I need to operationalize this design, right? How do I do it? If I need to realize this value stream, I need to make use of this development. If I need to book a table, people have to call me, or there needs to be an app. So I need to have a software for it. If as a customer, you need to order food, there need to be some kind of a application system where he looks at the menu and then he orders food. Then automatically when you submit, then it goes to the central kitchen and there's some kind of an alarming system. When the food is ready, they give back. For the feedback, you need some kind of an app. For the billing, you need some kind of an app. So whatever applications that you do to realize this operational value stream is nothing but your development value stream. So I repeat, value streams are sequence of activities. At the end, you get some value. The example that what we saw for the previous thing was, at the end, I get a car. I get a car which has a good mileage. There'll be different cars for each thing. One value can be a kind of a mileage. One can be a comfortable drive. So you have a value stream for that. Similarly, for the example that what we have taken, so operational value streams are from a business standpoint of view, what is the sequence of steps that I do from a design concept to a cache. Now, in order to realize this design, I will have to have different automated system. It can't be just one system altogether. So for all these operations, I need to map which system I need. This is called an development value stream. So this is the segregation. Are we clear in this? So value streams are basically a sequence of steps to realize a value. It can be either an operational value stream and a development value stream. Are we clear here? Any queries here before we move on?
Yeah. Rajan, actually, I have one doubt.
You can interrupt me anytime. Go ahead, please.
Okay. In normal project management, these are called milestones, right?
We will talk about it. We will talk about how we work on, but let's understand how lean works. Okay, let's understand that any car manufacturer, any manufacturing industry which follows lean will have this kind of an value stream level. For now, just park your question now. We will talk about it once we are trying to compare between a project and a product.
Okay.
For now, we'll have to understand the basics of value streams. Why do we use value streams? And we are trying to look at basic lean principles. That's all that we are trying to. And we are going to fine tune this one. We are just not going to copycat this one, but we'll have to understand these value streams. Value streams are set of activities from a design's point of view. It can be either an operational value stream or a development value stream. That's the point here. And the focus is on the value. What do I deliver to the customer? It can be any kind of a product or a service. Any other questions? Feel free to interrupt. Let's have a lively discussion. That's the whole point here. Let's learn from each other. Shall we move ahead?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So now we are going to look at lean principles. The earlier one, what we saw was value streams. Now we are going to look at lean principles. So the first principle that what we are going to talk about is precisely specify the value by specific product. I have a product, okay? One way of value stream that what we are taking is as a restaurant owner, one value stream would be is a customer who drops into my hotel. Another value stream would be if he tries to have a takeaway. Another value stream is if he uses some kind of an app like Zomato, is a kind of a revenue model. We'll have to understand each horizontal is kind of a revenue model. One is where he sits in the hotel. The other one is where he's trying to order from some kind of an app. The other one is he comes in and he takes a takeaway. So each one is a kind of a revenue model that what we are talking as well. So the point here is when we say precisely specify value by specific product. Now, as an IT developer or as a system developer, it is not the work of an IT developer to define the value of what you're trying to make. The customer is the king. He needs to tell what value we need to generate or what value and developer community needs to generate. So he is the one, the customer is the one who is going to decide what he wants. That's the point that we are trying to make. It's not the developing community. It's not the designers. It's not the product owner. From the development community, what we need to understand is we need to understand what are the customer needs. We'll have to have metrics which are quantifiable, the one that we were talking about in terms of measuring productivity. Similarly, we'll have to have metrics in terms of value. So I need to generate n number of users. I need to have this revenue. I need to have make sure this compliance is done. So there needs to be some kind of a quantifiable model where this customer needs are quantified. And the point that this talks about is, it is not about what we work. It is not about the product or the process or the initiative. What solution this is going to give as an output is what we got to focus. So when they say precisely specify the value by specific product, more importantly, that what we need to understand is the solution that what you provide to the customer is more important than what process we follow. Whether it really doesn't matter to the customer whether you follow water cycle, agile, DevOps. It doesn't really matter anything. All that matters is the solution that what you provide. Either you do it is project wise, product wise, how do you do it is not his problem. But what is the process that we are trying to do is not his problem. But the intent is what solution that we provide to the customer. That is the focus that we'll have to understand by specific product. So if you see this, for this value stream, it is guy who enters the hotel. Now, for some other product, that be maybe some kind of a value. So we got to clearly understand, more importantly, get the value from the customer and not decide ourselves, but it is our responsibility as a development community which makes this product or which makes this service to understand its needs, and the end product is what we are looking at. The solution that what the customer gets is what our focus should be, and not in the steps that what we follow. That's the point here. The second lean principle is identify value streams for each product. The one that what we saw before, for each product, it can be different products, each value streams, there can be n number of value streams. So you got to first understand the value, and then we got to come out with the sequence of steps that what we are trying to do. So once we have this sequence of steps, it is easy for us to understand what is the bottleneck, right? So that's what we are trying to. So once we have a flow, once we have a kind of sequence of steps, it is easy for us to understand where is the interruption. If there is an interruption, if there is a bottleneck, it is easy for us as a team to go ahead and fix that. Now, if you see this example here as a conveyor belt, if there is anything, there is a problem in some kind of an area, from the dashboards, from the way of how it is working, it is easy for teams to just jump in and find out what is the issue and rectify it quickly. That's the point that when we say make value flow without interruptions. The next thing is let the customer pull the value from the producer. It is not the work of the software developer or the product service provider to say this is what you need, go get it. I may have n number of features. The customer will first understand, okay, this feature is what is important for me for now. Let the other features remain. I will pull this feature, put it into the market first. So he is the one who is going to decide what comes into the market, what can come late. So the customer is the king again. Though he would have specified the value, which feature has to come first, it has to be decided by the customer and not by the service provider. The last one is always pursue perfection, meaning we have a flow. We are providing a value. The basic focus that what we are talking about is we are providing value. Providing value is not a kind of an one-time activity. It's not for one sprint. It is not for one PI. It is not for one quarter. It's going to be a continuous act, right? Where you'll always try to make improvements, refinements. So when you have these kind of value streams, you always trying to refine. Okay, this process is not doing well. I will try to do baby steps to improve this process this way. So this flow framework allows us to keep on adding small bits and pieces and improve and go on. And the point here is we're all trying to focus on the value. Value is decided by the customer. Value is pulled by the customer. And as a software developer, as a software developing community, we'll have to understand what his needs are, and we got to do baby steps and improve. So that's the basic principles of this lean principles. And it's the same thing. We got to understand who's the customer, what are we working for, why is he pulling this particular feature, what is his bottleneck, what is the end-to-end value that we get from the way that what we work. So these are all the basic principles, value streams and lean principles and flow framework that what we are talking about. Now, fine. Will I be able to just emulate, just copycat whatever is being done in lean principles? The same thing will I be able to do it in software delivery? Definitely not. Why? Okay, in a car production, it's a kind of an generalist role. Everybody looks at the value. I got to produce a car. This variant car is for a mileage. The other car brand was for some kind of a comfortable drive. Everybody has their focus on value. It's a flow framework. There is a production line. Everybody knows what they are working on. It's a more of a generalized thing. But in a software delivery model, it's not that kind of a way. Someone picked up in the kind of project way of working, right? It's more of a cost center where from a budget standpoint, from a time standpoint, everybody are working in silos, even from a development company. Everything is kind of a specialized role. Like UI guys will be of a different thing, database engineers, architects, middleware team. So there are a lot of specialized roles here. It is not similar to how there is a generalist that happens in car production. So we are trying to look at the difference, and we are trying to see what is the problem in just making sure that lean principles or this flow framework is just put in place for a software delivery. So everyone works in a different role, specialized role. It would not be easy for us. Car production is managed as products. This is managed as projects. We will see what is the difference here. The next thing is the whole architecture is around the flow. The whole architecture, there is a design to make a car. Everybody looks at the same design, and the car is being produced from the production line. But if the whole basic funda of software delivery is our software is basically split into technological layers, right? UI layer, integration layer, middle layer. So everything is architected in silos in different layers. Similarly, optimization also happens in silos. UI performance timing will be reduced. Database integration timings will be reduced. AWS some configurations will be. Everything is in silos where we don't focus on the end-to-end flow. Car production is more about business outcomes. You have a lead time. So if you see Leipzig plant, every 70 seconds, a car should be out. That's their metric. If it is not out, then there is some problem. That's the business outcome. For every 70 seconds, a car needs to be produced. They need to have some kind of a revenue, number of users, getting into new clients. So these are all some kind of business outcomes that what you look at. But from a software delivery point, number of trainings that Agile trainings that we do, number of people who moved from water cycle to Agile, number of deployments every day, which is not concerning to the business altogether. So this is what we call as, we just cannot put this lean principles and this value streams just like that into a software delivery. So we have some kind of a problem here in terms from software delivery point. That's the focus that we are looking at. Now, okay, we talked about this car production is managed as products, whereas software delivery is managed more from a project life cycle. Now, why is it different? Why is it that we'll have to shift from a project way of working to product? We are trying to look at this. So we are trying to look at categorize this as budgeting, timelines, success criteria that what we took. How do we handle risks? How teams are being built? How transparent are we in terms of teams or business outcomes? We all know that budgeting is in terms of scope. From a scope standpoint of view, we have timelines. Time is fixed, scope is fixed. Based on it, we try to work upon. It is not on the business of the customer is happy, not happy. That's the scope. If there is any change, go as a CR, that will come as a new project, where we are actually not adhering to what the customer wants. That's why we move to agile way of working. Typical project life cycle will work like that, but product life cycle will work as value streams, that what we saw before. I have a car production system for a mileage. I have a car. So the value stream is clear here. I have to produce a car. Value stream example that what we say is, as a restaurant owner, there is a value stream that what we saw was, this is the value stream that we saw. I have a clear value stream. Then another value stream like takeaway, another value stream like a customer would use some kind of an app. So there are a lot of value streams, meaning revenue model, a sequence of steps. So the product is based on these value streams, business outcome, incremental delivery. And it is not based on time or in terms of cost. So they will work for 6 months. They need to improve that. There'll be some kind of an project review, periodical reviews that happens based for the value stream or the features that what they deliver. And it is not on time and cost. So typical project will work on scope, time, and cost. But from a product life cycle, we are going to work in terms of value streams. Value streams are directly connected to the business outcomes, the revenue what we generate, the number of users. Some examples that what I'm doing. Take timelines. Project will have a strict start date, end date. And I'm not going to worry about maintenance, right? Hypercare, I'm not worried about it. There'll be some kind of an operations team that is going to worry about it. Once I deploy, all the defects, majority of the severity defects are fixed, then it will go to some operations team. Operations, when the project ends, the team moves out, right? That's the way how it works. But a typical value stream, the lifespan is much higher. Till the the product dies, there'll be a value stream. The maintenance happens from the value stream level. So there is always a team. So the point here is the time span, the budget is not fixed here. How do I, what are the business outcomes? It is just like a cost center. How much cost from a company standpoint I have reduced because I introduced these systems, IT systems. What is the time, budget? That's what we typically look at project milestones, that what we are trying to look at. But here product, it's more of a profit center. What revenue I generate, all that. So how do I handle risk? Planning is done upfront, right? So risk, you identify risk, you have a risk register, and you try to handle it. But here, the activity itself is prioritized based on this, based on what is the value that what we are doing. And you can make changes, right? There's nothing like a fixed plan. You can make changes depending upon the market. So if we say for one value stream, the value stream did not click, then what happens from a portfolio level? They will stop that rather than continuing that as a project. So they will make changes to it. If there is a risk, they will try to handle. The basic activity is prioritized based on value and risk. Teams, more importantly, a team works on this project, right? People are brought in to work, but that's not the way of how product works. Why? Because, say, for example, there is one activity or one feature where team is working. In all our status meetings that what we have done, if we are not able to deliver that particular task or particular feature, the first thing is, what is the problem? Do you need more people? Do you need more skilled people? That's the first thing that any team management will ask for, right? And adding people to the work may not solve the problem every time. That's the point that we are trying to bring in here. Just because there are 3 people working on a particular activity, just adding another 3 skilled resource, the problem might be different, right? So just because adding people to the work is not going to solve the problem, right? Rather than what each team has, it can be a value stream. So in this value streams, there'll be many teams involved. So say, for example, a book table, a team is not able to deliver that one, right? What happens from a portfolio level or from a management, right? This team is not able to, will not be able to deliver these features, these features. Why can't we pull in this particular feature and pull in to give it to some other team based on priority? So instead of the point here, that what I'm trying to make here is, instead of adding people to that work, make sure that understand what are the reasons behind it. Take a chunk of work that what the team is not able to do and make sure that the other team prioritize that and the other team does that. That's the whole point of how a product cycle works. And in terms of transparency, because value streams are kind of in flow level, everybody will be able to see visibly, it will be transparent. There are clear business outcomes, everybody will be able to see it. So this is what is the difference or the reasons why as a team we need to change from the left to the right in terms of product way of thinking in terms of value streams. Any questions here? And I guess you had some questions here. Maybe you can take this up now. Go ahead. Somebody had a question, right? On milestones.
Yeah. Paneer here. So I asked, like, in project based, there is a milestone. So how it is different from this product based?
So here milestones would be based on some kind of a task level, scope level, time level, right? That's the. But here this will be on business outcomes in terms of features, in terms of defects. So we will look at the metrics, value metrics at a later stage. But the point that we are trying to focus here, scope and time are kind of important, but they are just not the single factor. The business outcomes or the value that what these value streams are going to come out of that value stream is more important. So we will see at the metrics of how we are going to measure in terms of milestones. Milestones, when you say, is only looking at whether I finish this task on time, whether I finish this task on cost, on budget, whether I have completed the scopes. So the point that I'm trying to make, that this is just not enough. Whether I have completed that feature, whether that feature, that activity that you did is valuable to the customer. That's the point that the product will try to answer. Rather than just saying, I have completed this task, we are trying to look at delivering a feature from a value stream level and whether that is being used by the customer. That's the point that I'm trying to make here.
Rajan Fidzi here. Good afternoon. My question is a little bit off, but the screen that you're showing right now, can I also build on the concept of a project owner and a product owner's deliverables or a scope also?
So the point is, we are trying to make a tactical shift here. We are not looking at, when we look at projects, it's just on budgets. But when you, the complete way of working is altogether different when you look into these value streams. You have a flow. It's no more a black box. It's transparent. Everybody knows what the other team is working. That's the shift that we are making. And the whole development community looks at, what am I delivering? Why am I delivering? How is it helpful to the customer? Which was not happening in a project level way of working. So we are moving away from the project way of working to a product way of working. Does that answer the question?
Thank you.
Paneer, did it answer your question? We can have a discussion. If not, that's fine. We can have a discussion. Go ahead.
Actually, in Agile way, there is a definition of done. We at the end of each sprint, we will show a demo to the customer.
Correct.
We will feedback.
Correct.
So this is also something relevant to what you were telling. So that's
Correct.
what.
Agile is a kind of a medium. So it is not a kind of a silver spoon. Just because I use DevOps, just because I use Agile, right? Most of the transformations have failed. So the answer here is how we do it is not important. Yes, Agile is important. Agile way of looking at it in terms of value. DevOps is important, but it is not some kind of a silver lining. Just because we implement that, we are going to succeed. That is just at the down layer, bottom layer. But the more important layer is we got to bring in transparency so that the business and the development community are in the same page. Doing Agile is fine, but that's not the final way. That is not going to guarantee you success. Doing DevOps is fine. Even after using Agile, using of DevOps, companies have failed. That's the point my question is trying to look. Unless and until we have this kind of a flow frame, it can be any framework where there is a visualization of what people do. That is more important. So we have when we use Agile, we use value, but Agile is a medium, right? The solution that what we provide, the output that what you provide is more important. That's the point that we are trying to make.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Danya, you don't have to wait. You can just interrupt me. Go ahead, Danya.
Rajan, my question is with respect to the metrics.
Little louder, please. I'm not sure whether others are also able to hear you. Little louder.
Is it audible now?
Yes. Go ahead.
Okay. My question is around the metrics with respect to the business outcome. All right. So in any organization, though there will be certain level of hierarchy. So for the people on the leadership, they would understand the business outcome, the metrics. So when the actual development team is working, and how do we forecast, like how do we understand the business outcome metrics? Or I just want to understand in what way the development team can display the business outcome, and also we understand the outcomes, like
right, the metrics, basically the dashboard. So
yes.
This is the question that what we that pondered thing is, how do I measure software productivity? That line. So that is why we are trying to have this building block. We will look at this flow metrics, what we need to measure, so that the business leadership team, development community are in the same page, whether I have completed this outcome or not. We'll look into that later. Just park that question now.
Okay.
So all that we are trying to do is we are trying to make a base here. We are trying to emulate some principles of the manufacturing way of working, lean principles, and we are trying to fit in, customize it in the software delivery. That's a point. So flow framework, value stream, lean principles, and there is always going to be a shift that what we do. We are going to make changes. Metrics is what we are going to look at a later stage. Just park your question for now. Go ahead, Satam.
Yeah, hi sir, this is Satam here. As you have explained that Mike Kristen has visited the BMW open project plant, and he got the idea that transparency would be the best suitable approach for a project management process. So my question is that in the coming years of AI, artificial intelligence, would this transparency would be maintained in agile project management plan, or AI would limit this factor?
To my understanding, AI is a medium. Okay, AI is a kind of a technology. But what is the business outcome for it? There needs to be some kind of a business outcome for it, right? I go to a bank, I ask some questions. Instead of going to a bank, I use a chat, an AI chat. That gives me all that answers, right? So what is that business outcome? You have some questions, queries where you visit the bank, you have some questions. You get it answered through an AI chat tool. Using AI or cloud is kind of a medium, but what is the business outcome of using that AI tool? That's still business, right?
Yes, for example, nowadays Facebook is using a lot of AIs that is being limited to the transparency, and Facebook has already been got into trouble. Like they are using AI to get a lot of their works done, but the limitation
that's a different altogether. But the point that I am trying to make here is, Facebook is using AI to come out with some kind of a business outcome. Are we clear with that business outcome? I go to a bank, I ask that question. Instead of calling a call center, now I am able to use a chat, get those answers through an AI chatbot. Now, what is the business outcome? I have that clear business outcome. I have that value streams. I have that flow. The business out AI is just a medium. Today it is AI. Tomorrow it can be some other technology. We are not focusing on that. We are looking at the business outcome so that the development community and the business are in the single page, or in the same page.
Yep, it's clear. Okay.
Shall we move on?
Just one point, Rajan,
Right.
Malaysia side. Yeah. So we are slowly progressing from project management to product management. So you mean to say that product management will be much more used in the near future?
Almost many companies have started moving. Google already has the way of working. Google works this way. Microsoft works this way. Wherever safe implementation is being done right now, this is the basic way of working. Wherever safe implementation is done, the basic fundamental of this product life cycle is the basic funda is from the safe framework. So that's the point. So the point here that I'm trying, we need to understand is, are we clear with the value? Are we clear with the outcomes? Are we able to measure the software productivity? That's the point that we are trying to. That's not happening accurately at the project level. So we are trying to move it in terms of a flow level. Tomorrow it can be any other framework. Instead of flow framework, it can be any other framework. But this kind of value streams flow framework, the basic, it's a fundamental block for safe framework. They use this kind of a product. They use this. Most of these companies use these value streams. So that's how it works.
Okay, Rajan, I got you, but I think we are out of time. This is only for 60 minutes only, right?
That's fine. We can continue. We can continue. Go ahead. If you have any questions, we can continue. We can extend the session. Absolutely no problem.
Yeah, that's what. But I would like to know more about it, because you're telling that we need to go by value streams and all, right? We need to identify the business outcome for each and every activity, right? So, can you just show us what exactly? Can you take an example? Okay, this is what you are told, right? So book a table, and this is then you map it to the IT, right? So have a application and all this in feedback and billing system and all. Yeah. So okay, that's fine. But this is a very small example. But if you're talking about a very big product and all, so how do you? Because a lot of multiple activities will be going on in a IT project, right? So
let's make sure that we are clear to understand what is a value stream, right? So if we are clear with this, however complex your thing may be, say for example, digital transformation, cloud transformation. So cloud transformation, one vertical, let's take a company's vertical, cloud transformation is one vertical. There'll be n number of value streams for it, n number of teams for it. From a cloud transformation, petroleum, oil sector, each one is kind of a revenue generator. But the point here, let's take a simple example so that everybody understands. If we are able to understand this, it is easy. I understand it is easy for us to emulate in the way of how we work. Cloud transformation, migrations, that what we do, right? You have some legacy systems. I am trying to make it to cloud. So you have a value streams for it. What do I do from a customer's point of view? What do you do? How do you migrate it to cloud? So you have that sequence of steps, right?
Yeah, got it. Yeah, but okay, just we need to identify the steps, because when we just studied in PMP and ACP and all the kind of stuffs. So basically, the value streams, we are identifying what is the value added time and non-value added time, so that you can find where you can increase your productivity, right? So we can identify just to minimize the non-value added tasks, so which is kind of a waste. If you minimize it, your productivity will increase, right?
The point that what you're talking about is a lean principle. It is nothing connected with the value stream. The value stream is, I am delivering a product or a service. What makes me to deliver a product or a service? That's the point that we need to focus here. The lead time, cycle time is all an after effect of once we come out with these value streams. But the point here that first we need to identify a value. What are the sequence of steps? The factor is, am I able to visualize from a design, from a concept to the actual revenue, the sequence of steps? Am I able to visualize it? Is there a flow? Once you have that flow, the bottleneck, lead time, cycle time, all that stuff comes in. The point here is, the value streams is, am I able to visualize the flow? More than what you're talking about in terms of
got it, Rajan. But can you show us one more example where we can actually figure it out with another example, please?
Maybe you can pick up an example. We can always talk about it. Pick up some example that what you want. Just pick some example, or anybody can just jump in. In the day-to-day work, that what you do in your daily work, just pick an example, right?
Maybe maybe an artificial intelligence project where we are
okay, the one example that, let's take a simple chatbot. That's what I typically understand, right? So you're trying to make some chatbot, okay, or some kind of a bank fraudulent system or something. So you have a chatbot. Okay, the whole idea of this chatbot is to take away all this call center work, right? So you have some n number of queries. How do I answer it? So today's that's how it works, right? So you have the sequence of steps. I'm going to ask something about my credit card. I'm going to ask something about my debit card. So you're trying to categorize it. These are the questions that they're going to ask. How am I going to answer? So each one has some kind of a sequence of steps. The chatbot or AI chatbot, or just give another example for AI. Fraudulent systems. Today's the banks are able to come out with fraudulent systems, right? So they're trying to pick some transactions that are fraudulent. So there is a bank transaction that happens right from the start till the end, where it is able to check for thing.
So okay, after Vikram here, I want to understand your views on this project to product shift in manufacturing industry. Basically, we talked a lot about IT industry. However, in manufacturing industry with current trends, what are your views on this shift, this transformation?
Manufacturing industry already follows this, right? So where is the question that arises for?
What is the current trend, or maybe the transformation?
I don't work in a manufacturing industry, so I will not be able to comment it. But if somebody else works on manufacturing, they'll be. So here we are talking about, we are trying to pick some good examples from the how lean principles or how manufacturing industry works, and we are trying to emulate it in software. That's the whole point. I work for a software industry, but I will not be able to answer the trends in the manufacturing. I may not be the right person.
Okay. Thank you.
Malaysia. Maybe we'll pick it at the end where we will park this. Maybe somebody can come out with some examples, and we will try to sketch out a value stream. Okay, in the interest of time, let's move ahead. Maybe we will talk about it at the end of the session. But for now, let's understand that we need a kind of an value stream where there is a sequence of flow of items, where there is a clear business outcome, and where we have identified the value. That's the point that we are trying to look at. All right. Let's move on. So we talked about disruptions, right? So how do I handle disruptions? So this flow framework came out with some kind of an planning level of how to handle disruptions, where they try to categorize this as 3 work areas. One is horizon 1, the next is horizon 2, and the next is horizon 3. Where horizon 1 is, I need to design or I need to plan for whatever work that I do currently. So I need to have some funds, I need to plan all that, whatever that I do currently, right? So as a company, what do I do in the next 2 or 3 years? What are my new technologies that what the company is going to come out with? What is the new product offerings that you're going to, for the next 2 or 3 years, what will be my plan? You will have to have some kind of a roadmap and start investing on it and start nurturing it, right? After the third year, it is not like kind of a magic that it's going to come. So you got to work for it. For the next 3 years, how is the company going to be? Next horizon is at the long-term plan. 5 years and above, what is my future? What is the roadmap? How am I going to look at new markets or new avenues? So only once we have this kind of short level, middle layer, long level plans, we will be able to absorb these disruptions, compete with the startups, compete with new markets, all that stuff. So they're talking about this kind of an segregation. This is in terms of investment. One is the current way of what I need to invest to just to make sure that the company is running. Next investment is in my next 2 or 3 years, what is the product that I'm going to deliver so that the company can run? In the next 5 years or 10 years, how my future is going to be, what am I going to offer to the customer? That's how we need to plan, invest, and develop products and services. One thing is kind of a disruptive innovation. When I say disruptive innovation, say how Apple came up with smartphones, digital market, Uber. It was just 2 or 3 clear, simple UI screens that disrupted the whole market, right? That is how we are trying to make that. There's a kind of an innovation which is going to disrupt the complete market. How Geo came into existence, right? That's a kind of a disruptive innovation. Sustaining innovation is you already made an innovation, you jumped into a new market, new innovation, you already jumped in, but you just have to sail it around. You just have to make sure that they're running and you're getting revenue out of it. It is not just 1 year, 2 years, you make an innovation, you just jump in there, and then you got to survive through a long period. That is what you're trying. You already entered into a market, but you got to keep hold of it in terms of sustaining innovation. The third is kind of a mission critical. What is kind of, that is the revenue generation thing. Say for Tata's, TCS is the revenue generation cow. Maybe some other sectors, they're good. But from a Tata group, TCS is the revenue generation machine. Enabling is, though it may not be kind of a revenue generating machine, I need to have supporting teams to it. We need HR, we need marketing, we need administration. So these are all teams that we need. Without this, these kind of mission critical activities cannot do. So we need to plan which disruptive, again I repeat, disruptive innovation is you're trying to disrupt the market. Sustaining innovation is you got to live it around. I come into a new market, I have to keep hold of it. Mission critical is that's your revenue generating work currently. Enabling is kind of support activities that what as a company, HR, marketing, all that stuff. So when you say cost center, all the time, IT was more of an enabling thing, right? That's what we are trying to make as a shift and make it into innovation system. So the first thing that from an enterprise level, so the whole point that we are trying to talk here is how to handle disruptions using this flow framework. So the first thing is incubation zone, right? So we talked about this horizon 3, right? What is my company 10 years from now? How is it going to look? 5 years from now, how is it going to look? For that, we'll have to start working on it. I have to create products for it. So incubation zone is we are trying to create opportunities for the future, right? AI technologies, data warehousing, all that thing that we are trying to build in that future. So that work item should be something as a company, we got to invest. There needs to be a team which is working on this product. The second zone is your performance zone. So currently as a company, most of my 90% of the company comes through this product. Down the lane, that may not be the case. But for now, I need to support this activity. These are the products or these are the services that I do where majority of my income comes, majority of my revenue comes. That's how existing products that what we are doing. So that comes under the sustaining innovation, and this is coming under horizon 1. Horizon 1 is for the current revenue that what will. Then the third one is productivity zone, that what we talked about, enabling factor, HR, marketing, which are kind of an bottom line. This is more of a top line, which is revenue generation. Productivity zone is more of enabling factors, which is supporting this mission critical item. More important is this transformation zone, which is going to be kind of a disruptive innovation in another 3 years or 4 years from now. Right now, I have a product is just launched, may not be giving more revenue, but that's going to make a shift for me. That's going to make a big change and give it revenue so that I handle disruptions. So the whole point here is there needs to be a plan, there needs to be a team that is working, funded in terms of value streams, separately for all these. The transformation zone will be separate, productivity zone will be separate, incubation zone will be separate. So we'll have to have different value streams for it, where money is pumped in, team works, and there is a roadmap of how we are going to handle disruptions in particular. That's the whole point here, that what I'm trying to focus on. So that's what this flow framework emphasizes on. Are we clear here? Before we move on to the next slide.
Yeah, yes, Rajesh. I have one question.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Actually, now in Agile framework, there is something called if there is a degree of uncertainty is high and the requirement uncertainty is high, we will go for Agile. So how about here in flow framework? What is the criteria to go for flow framework? Is it for everything we can go, or is there some criteria we can adopt?
See, I get your question. Again, you are trying to fix with Agile or thing. It is just Agile is just a medium. Again, I'm trying to point across. Here is that it is a medium. Here we are talking at the portfolio level, from a organization level, how I handle disruptions. Today it is Agile, tomorrow it can be SAFe, it can be some other framework, it can be a DAD, discipline Agile, it can be anything. That is just a way of how you implement it. We are not talking about implementing here. Here it is at the portfolio level as a company, how I need to handle the disruption, right? You can even do it in a water cycle way. That's not the question here. But when you have these flow streams, automatically what happens is that it is kind of an Agile way of thinking, where you will pivot, you will make changes depending upon the market. I have a product here. That product is not selling. So, okay, there's no need of funding this product. No need of keeping this requirement on feature. Let's move this and have another feature. That transparency will come once you have this kind of a flow level. The point that what I'm trying to make here is, as a company or as a portfolio level, how I handle disruptions. That's the point that here is. Let's not mix Agile or DevOps here. Agile is a way of working. That's what I'm trying to put across. Tomorrow it can be something else. But we are when we say this kind of flow level, transparency, we are going to make use of any of this kind of Agile way of working, SAFe. It can be even a water cycle. When there is no, like what you're saying, when there is no uncertainty, I don't need to use a map. But the point here is not whether you're using Agile or waterfall. Point here is, are we having business outcomes? Are we having a clear understanding of what is the value? Are we using these value streams? I can even use a water cycle model. That's fine. As long as I have a water cycle model, flow framework with a value flowing, so that I'm able to understand and rectify that problem. That's the point that I'm trying to make.
Oh, okay. This is at portfolio level.
Correct. As a company, how do I need to handle disruptions? Yesterday there was a Microsoft outage, right? How do I handle that? What will happen if my company for the 1 week there is a Microsoft outage? How do I handle that? That's what we are trying to talk about here. Agile is a medium. That's it.
Okay. Got it.
Go ahead, Raj.
Hello, sir. Good evening. Regarding the first zone, the incubation zone. So who is the stakeholder, how they are going to invest on clarity? Because the main investment and strategy will be happening from the incubation
portfolio
zone
level. So all this will be at the portfolio level. We were talking about AI, right? So how I have a legacy tool. Now, how do I translate that into pattern languages, prompt engineers? How do I handle that? So
yes.
that could, so from a strategic level, it is not, we just cannot handle it. What will be from the next 10 years?
Yes,
right?
sir. Just I
We got
wanted
to plan
to
it.
clarify
So
on that incubation zone.
the entire thing is from the portfolio level in terms of strategizing.
Okay. Is it arrived from the product roadmap, or how the like investment point of view? Who is going to stakeholder mainly in that case? The
Portfolio
incubation
level
zone.
will be from the business standpoint. It will be from the portfolio level. It will be the leadership team. So once you define the value, then you come out with these value streams, right? For each of these value streams, you will have this kind of an strategic decision making of how am I going to plan for, how am I going to invest. So it will be from a leadership team, from the business.
So you can't able to make it at the operation level, that is at the lower level where exactly the work happens.
So this is more of a from a portfolio level. From here, you will come to value streams, right? From this value streams, it will pin down to this. This is altogether a value stream. This is altogether a different tab. This is a different tab. This will be n number of teams. So there'll be 3 teams working for a booker table feature. There'll be 1 team that is looking for a customer figure. That may be a different altogether, a different team. So here we are not looking at the team level. We are trying to look at the strategy level. Team level comes in realization of for a booker table, I will have a feature. There'll be 1 team that is working on it. This is where team level comes in. But from a value stream level, we are looking at a consolidated thing of what is my revenue, that what I'm going to generate. Does that answer your question?
Is it cradle development happening?
I think we are trying to get into out of the picture now. Now, the whole objective was how do I shift right from the way of how I work on projects? How do I work on products? That's the focus of our session here, right? Let's focus on that. So at the project level, I was not able to measure productivity. So in order to unblock that black box, I am coming out with these value streams. I'm coming out with this business outcomes. When you're talking about teams, this will be somewhere down here. But here, it is more at the value stream level. Let's focus on that. I think we are trying to move our focus now.
So what is the basis of metrics? How can you measure the productivity in the flow based?
Part that question. Now, that question.
Okay. Yeah.
So in order to handle disruptions, the flow framework comes out with this kind of a design model of what I am going to work currently, what I'm going to work in the next 2-3 years, how am I going to be in the future, which products or services are going to happen, which is my revenue top line, which is my bottom line, which is going to be at the support level. Whole idea of this flow framework is to anticipate disruptions. Disruptions are going to come. How do I handle that? That's the point here. Shall we move it?
Yes, sir. Clear. It's clear.
All right. Now comes, okay, I just cannot implement the same lean principles or this production line philosophy just like that into a software delivery. That's not possible because we saw how complex is software delivery. So he came out with 3 problem statements that needs to be handled before we implement this flow framework. Though we are going to make use of this lean principles, value streams, I need to make some minor tweaks. The first problem statement that what he is trying to make is when your software architecture is not aligned with your value stream. Now we know what is a value stream. What is a value stream? If somebody can just pitch in. What do you mean by a value stream?
Sequence of steps, right?
In order you come out with some value where it's some kind of an transparency. So my architecture or my software development should support this value stream. So what the point that what he is trying to make here is, whatever that the work done by the software development community should directly relate with the value that what was intended to produce. Are we clear with the statement? So the point that what he's trying to make is, architecture is some kind of an supporting enabling factor. Any work that what we do should directly correlate with the business outcome that we are trying to make. So when you say a good architecture, say for example, you are making some minor UI changes. It should not be like I make n number of changes at different technological layers, different UI layer, I make integration layer, I make changes, data layer I change, middle level layer change. It should not be that. My architecture to support in such a way that I make have minimal number of changes, so that just like our translation of our languages, right? You just have a properties file. Irrespective of language, we just jump in. That's how the architecture should be. I'm just giving a simple example. Similarly, any UI change that you make, there should be minimum level of changes that what you do. So, and whatever coding activity that we do, that should directly relate with your value stream. Now, how we are going to do it, we will try to relate that or talk about it later. But first understand that this is a problem statement. If I don't do the coding development work which directly relates to the value stream outcome, it is of waste. When the software scales, when you have teams like 100-member team, 200-member team, then the productivity will decline, wastage will increase when the architecture does not support the value stream. Are we clear here? Just understand the problem statement. We are going to talk about how we are going to solve this at the later stage. But just by following lean principles, just by following this flow framework, nothing is going to happen. My value stream, now we know what is a value stream, what should be the business outcome. The development activity should align with the value stream. The architecture needs to support the value stream. That's the problem statement. This is the first problem statement. Are we clear here? We can ponder in if we have any questions. Are we clear? Any questions? We're just talking about a problem statement. We are not talking about solutions here. Shall we move ahead? You guys have some questions, then we can look into it. All right, let me move ahead. So, any questions?
May I know how long it will take? How much more time?
I'll quickly finish it up. Another 10-15 minutes, we can
wrap
it up.
Thank you. Yeah.
But are we clear here? That's the point here. So whatever development activity that we do should correlate with your value stream activity. That's what the point is. If it is not happening, then the software, as we scale, as the team scales, the productivity will decline. That's the point here. The second point is, you will have n number of value streams, right? The one that we saw here. One value stream would be a customer who drops into one. Another one would be a takeaway. Another one value stream can be some other who uses an app like Zomato or Swiggy. Each one is some kind of a sequence of steps. There needs to be collaboration between one value stream and the other. If we don't have that, if we have that disconnect, what happens is that the basic cause for the disconnect of this value streams is because we are using a wrong project management model. Let's give you an example. Each one uses Microsoft developers will use n number of tools, right? If you talk about Java stack, they will be using a different tools. Business will be using. So if you take from a company standpoint, typically 60 to 100, more than 100 tools will be used. But how am I going to manage? How am I going to get the metrics? In your lean manufacturing model, everything was clear, more of generalist. You had a clear lead time, you had a clear cycle time. We had a clear idea that every 70 seconds, a car needs to be coming out of the production line. So how do I get the data if I have n number of tools? I need to integrate it, right? So if we don't have, if we are going to use n number of tools, if there is no integration in this, then that's the cause of we are not applying a correct project management model. That's the problem statement. You have n number of tools. Each developing community will use different types of tool sets. But again, that data needs to be consolidated, right? At some down or that. So you got to have a correct project management model to make sure that we get a full dashboard metrics data. So the point here is there is going to be heterogeneous tools that are being used. We got to manage this data. To manage this data, we should have a correct project management model. If we don't have that kind of a model, then we are not going to get the whole data dynamics or the dashboards that what we are intending on. Shall I move ahead to the next problem statement?
Yes, sir.
The third one is software is different, lean manufacturing is different, like what we were talking about. They are not kind of sequential steps. One value stream will collaborate, will align with the other value stream, and that each value stream will be aligned to the products. Manufacturing of cars. You have a design. Once it is designed, then it's a series of steps. That's the same thing for any product. Until a design, then there will be some kind of an innovation that happens. Once the design prototype is ready, then it's a kind of a sequence of steps that what we do. There is no change, right? But take, for example, an aeroplane. If there is a weather change that happens, the plan is to go into this route, but then later they'll make a pivot and say, okay, the weather is not good, I got to land somewhere else. They'll make changes here. That's how software delivery runs, right? Where there is always an uncertainty. It's not a kind of a linear sequential process that happens. So the variability in terms of requirement, in terms of complexity, changes in software delivery. Repeatability changes. Design frequency changes. When you say design frequency for a car manufacturing, at the first level you design, then once the prototype is ready, there's nothing for creativity, nothing for design. It's just sequence of steps. But the complexity increases for a software delivery model. That's the point. We just cannot copycat the lean manufacturing model here, just like that, and fit in for a software. That's the point that we are trying to make here. So these are the three problem statements that what we are looking, and how the flow framework will try to answer this. So I'm just trying to repeat again. The first one is when the software development activity or the architecture should connect with your value streams. Value streams means it should connect with your business outcomes. If it doesn't connect, then it would be often wastage. Are we clear with the first thing? Any questions? We can just step in. So whatever work we do, that should directly correlate with your value stream. Any work that is not correlating with your outcome, we should not be doing. And that is being supported by the architecture. Most of the time, what developers would do, we will try to search on the code, look onto the, again and again, we'll be looking into the code, how it is being done. We search for some other resources, or any small change that we do, you will have to do it at n number of places. So that needs to be avoided. How we do it is altogether a different ballgame. But just understand for now is that your architecture should support your value stream. If you see in your lean manufacturing, the whole architecture was optimized to the flow. But here in terms of software, it is all siloed. That's the point here. The second point is the value streams. There are the n number of value streams that what we saw. So each value stream should interact with the other value stream. For that interaction to happen, we need to have a right management thing, because each one would be using different tools. In operations team itself, they'll be using n number of tools. Development community will be using n number of tools. Now, how do I correlate all this data? Only when I get all this data, I'll be able to understand whether I'm able to I will be able to measure the software. If there is a bottleneck, what is the bottleneck? I'll be able to realize. So the problem is we are making use of n number of heterogeneous tools. That is the second problem. And for that to handle, we need to have a right management model. The third one is we just cannot implement the lean manufacturing process here. It's just not sequential process. There is a creativity here. There is a design change here. Every iteration, there will be a design. Every iteration, there will be a planning activity that is being repeated. And there is always an uncertainty here. Design changes at multiple times, requirement changes at the multiple times. That's the three problem statements that we are looking at. And that's the reason why simply copycat the lean manufacturing process. We'll have to make changes. I stop here. Any questions till now? Shall we move on?
Sir, I have a question regarding you mentioned that three different architecture from the software point of view and hardware. But how that integration will happen, because the hardware is fixed, software is continuously evolving. So how do the bridge between values?
I did not get your question when you talk about hardware here. What do you mean by hardware here?
Like the cars having the cars model prototype, it's all fixed, it's a hardware and software which we are going for an upgradation that is continuously developing. So how the integration happen, because once hardware is designed, they can't able to upgrade immediately because it is having a timeline.
No, the point that I was trying to make was there is nothing like design change when once a prototype is being planned and things. That's the point that I'm trying. We are just trying to understand how a car is being produced. What is the problem when you are trying to do a software delivery? But here in the software delivery, even at the end, we'll have to make changes to the design, right? We try to make some changes. That doesn't happen in a software. That is a kind of a problem statement here. I need to make changes to the design. There is always a creativity. I repeat the plan. I repeat the design. I repeat the test. So we got to, all that repeatability, variability happens here. That's the point that we are not trying to look at solutions here. All that we are trying to look at is we are trying to understand the problems that we need to fix.
Okay. That's clear. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, let's quickly. So we are trying to look at this flow framework altogether, right? So we have these value streams. We have the problem statement, what need to done. So now the basic question was, how do I measure productivity? So the business has to be in the same page as the leadership team. Business has to be in the same page as the development community who delivers the software. So flow item, the measure, these are the four units of business value any team will try. Feature is something that what the value that is being added to the business, what is visible to the customer. Defect is what, something from quality standpoint. Risk is something where you're trying to look at some kind of an regulatory compliance, vulnerability changes in terms of risk. Depth is in terms of how do you refactor code. So any work that we do in these value streams should fall in either of these four. That's the point here. So that the business understands what feature or what defect or what risk or what depth that the development community is working. That's the whole point. We are trying to bring in the transparency, have just 4 units of business value so that everybody understands what the other one is doing. So when we are talking about items or metrics, this is how we are going to measure. So these are the basic things. So first we try to understand what is the value, then came out with value streams, then added lean principles. And this is the flow item that we are looking. We are either going to look at feature, defect, risk, depth. Depth will be in terms of bringing in more refactoring, bringing in quality code, changes in the architectural level, infrastructure level, DevOps, pipeline, all that stuff. Risk is in terms of compliance, making changes, security compliance, vulnerability, the outage that happened yesterday from Microsoft. How am I going to handle risk? Defect is in terms of what is the quality fixes that what we do from a customer experience. Feature is the actual business value. Are we clear here? So we are trying to bring in transparency where both the business and the developer community understands this. So this would be some kind of a measurement unit, what I am working on. Any questions here? All right. Now somebody asked, how are we going to do metrics? The whole funda is, how am I going to measure productivity? So this is how we are looking at. So we looked at kind of an value streams, right? Now comes the metrics. These were flow items that what we are going to, but here is more of an metrics. Flow distribution is how much amount of proposition as a team, how many features as a team I am going to work, how many defects I am going to take, or how is that going to be a risk item, or is it going to be a tech debt? So basically the proportion or percentage of work a team is going to take. So say for example, if it is a new product, it would be a more of feature level, less of defects, some proportion of risk features, some proportion of debts, more from a feature standpoint of from a user value. Or say for example, if it is already an deployed feature, from an operational standpoint, what happens is that it would be more of defects, less of features, and some proposition of risk items and debt items. So as a team, I need to plan how much percentage of different categorized work item that I am going to pick. How much percentage of feature I am going to take for this particular sprint or for this particular product increment, how much defects I'm going to take, how much percentage of risk items I'm going to handle, or am I going to handle tech debts? So this flow distribution, depending upon the way of how teams work, flow distributions try to come out with this metrics. The second item is flow velocity. So we already have these flow items. We have this team velocity, right? Similarly, the consolidated of number of features, risk, depth. Let's say, for example, if every as a team we are trying to take 2 risk items, 2 depth items, 2 defects, features, then the velocity would be a consolidated of flow velocity. So number of items that the team is going to do. So what happens here is that if one team's flow velocity is less, generally in Agile, what we say is that we should not try to compare between teams. There'll be some teams where because the simple reason, because the dimension may be different, the estimations then may be different. But this would give an overall idea from a team's perspective, why is this team taking less features, less risks? So from this velocity, okay, this team is taking only 8. Is it taking good proposition in terms of handling tech debts? Is it taking good proposition in handling risk? That we can get that from flow distribution based on this flow velocity. That's the whole point here. Flow time is right from the work that is being taken, typical lead time, right? Right from the work that is being taken, how long does it take for me to deliver that product or deliver that service or a feature to the market? So if it is taking time, what is it taking time? Because we have a flow, it will be easy for us to understand where is the bottleneck. Flow load is basically how many items are work in progress in terms of active items or how much is waiting. So this will give me a quick idea of whether we need to add in more people or what is the bottleneck. Flow efficiency is looking at efficiency from when we say flow load is the complete set of both the active time and the waiting time together, right? But the flow efficiency will look into in terms of ratio between the total active time and the total flow time. Total flow time will be the active time plus the waiting time. So that flow efficiency will give me an idea what is the bottleneck, whether it is some kind of an upstream dependency, you have some API dependency there, team is waiting or requirement is waiting. So all these are related to the flow, are related to in terms of why I am not able to deliver or why I'm delivering that particular feature. So this is how a flow metrics looks at. Somebody was asking in terms of metrics. This is how flow framework looks at. So how much amount of work item that I take, how long does it take, how long does it wait? How long does it is in active state? What is the efficiency of the flow? That is how we look at flow metrics. This is easy for any role to understand from a business standpoint, leadership team. So when there is a productivity decrease, anybody can be able to understand because we are talking on the same language. That's the point here, to bring in visibility and transparency. I take a pause here. Somebody asked a question in terms of metrics. Do you have any questions here?
No, Rajan, I think we'll continue. Yeah.
All right. So we tried to identify value, then we came out with value streams, then we came out with flow items, then before that we tried to handle how do we handle disruptions. Now we are trying to how to measure the software productivity. These are some kind of parameters that what we are trying to do. So in terms of business outcomes, in a new market, how many new clients have so somebody was asking in terms of how do I measure that, right? One way of measuring is in terms of this, how many features I have developed, or we talk about OKRs, objectable key results. Most of the companies come out with these OKRs of how in terms of business outcomes. So these are some kind of business outcomes in terms of what revenue I have generated, active users, what are the new number of new claims that I have got. So in terms of cost, in terms of how much cost I was able to reduce, from a value stream standpoint, what is the cost that is happening right now? How many defects are coming for each value stream? From a happiness net performance score from a client level, or from even from the employees level. So these are the basic, some kind of business outcome examples that we are looking at. They are typically examples like OKRs. So either we first come out with flow items, then we come out with this flow metrics, and this is from a more from a business standpoint of outcomes, that what in terms of revenue generation, happiness index from an employee standpoint, how many defects have been. So these are some examples of how we need to measure in terms of value stream measurements rather than just cost and time. That's the point here from a business standpoint of view. Now we are going to look at different real world examples of how disruptions happen, right? And how this flow framework will be able to tackle this disruption. That's the whole focus here. Today's car is more digital, more e-mobility, IoT is there. Most of the cars recalls that is happening in the last 5 years or 6 years, the survey that has done, most of the cars that recall, it so happened because of a faulty software or a faulty bug, where the emphasis was more on quick features than their other competitors. The flow distribution that what we were talking about is what we are trying to look at. From a business standpoint or from the development community, there should be a right ratio of how much feature I am going to deliver. With this feature, how am I going to handle risk or depths, or how am I going to develop? So that right proposition ratio needs to be there. If we don't follow that, then it's just because I'm trying to deliver a particular feature, we are not going to solve. So most of the solution problems came in terms of recalling of the cars came because there was no clear process or thumb rule in terms of this flow distribution of how the proposition is going to be. Quick features that came in caused all these problems. That was one example. Equifax is a kind of an 125-year-old company. It specializes in data production. It's there for quite long. But one single breach that happened, security breach that happened, the entire company collapsed and the CEO had to was sacked. And the basic reason was they did not handle risk in terms of compliance, regulatory compliance, contractual obligations. So again, flow distribution comes into picture where the business will be able to understand what the software is trying to deliver. That's the whole point here of what I'm trying to bring in here. All these flow metrics that what we are trying to look at, is easy to understand from business standpoint of view, and that makes a clear picture when we have this flow framework of this value stream for this sprint or for this product feature increment. What is the risk item that what the team is working? This flow metric will be able to tell me that this team is not working good enough in terms of risk. This team is not good enough in working in terms of tech debt items to improve our architecture. So that disturbance or that disruption can be handled again if we handle this flow distribution. Nokia, for example, it is there from 18th century. It started like a paper mill factory. Then it came into rubber business. Then 20th century, it moved to electronics, right? It started from the age of steel. Then it had the capability to pivot depending upon the market demand and come back at each century level. So that's a good example of how Nokia tried to. But the problem with Nokia was its strength was in hardware to make a component, but its strength was not in software. So they realized it 2 years before Apple tried to come up with this kind of a digital experience, or any company, Samsung, was trying to come up 2 or 3 to 4 years before. It was able to understand that there is a technical shift from a hardware level to there's going to be altogether a new digital experience, where they did not have that strength. So what they pivoted was they tried to come out with this, merge this. They bought a company called Symbian, which was making all this software, where the understanding was they'll be able to help in terms of bringing this digital experience. And Symbian already had quality products. It's known for its quality. But the problem was, once they started merging this softwares, merging as a company, the leadership team thought just because one entity which is good at software is trying to merge with an hardware team, we'll be able to give a good digital experience. That was the understanding. But slowly technical teams start understanding that it's no way possible to merge these two systems. They were trying to make a feature like a Play Store, what Microsoft was trying to make, right? They were trying to make a kind of a Play Store feature. So they understood that it had a lot of technical depths. It is no way, the platform needs to be refactored, but the problem was they did not have time. So similarly, there were a lot of other features that Nokia faced where they were not giving importance to tech depths, that what we were talking about. Where here we are in terms of a flow item that we are talking about. So the point here is, there should be an equal proposition, or there should be a focus, not just at the feature level. There should be focus from a risk standpoint. How my architecture is going to handle this? How am I going to handle risk? How am I going to handle from a quality standpoint? So that was the problem that what Nokia faced. And Mike Kirsten was very in close touch with all these transformation activities that what Nokia did, right? When Nokia started changing to agile transformations, again, many people were asking, just because the point here is, just because we have this agile or have this DevOps, it's not a silver spoon, things are not going to change. Nokia was a poster boy in the earlier days where Scrum, for the Scrum community, Nokia was the poster boy. They had changed these many teams into agile teams. We started working as agile teams. So just because we make shifts in terms of agile, that's not going to be the answer. But they had a lot of tech depths where the development community understood, but the leadership did not understand it. So that language difference is what is the answer for this flow framework. Everybody talks in terms of these 4 flow items: features, tech depths, risks, defects. And they look at these flow metrics of how my flow distribution is going to be, how much time does it take for a particular feature or for a particular defect from the start to end. Where is my problem? These metrics will be able to answer that question. So the point here is, here it was more about tech depth not being focused on in the work that we do. And the feedback that what Nokia employees gave was, there are many reasons. Just from a layman's point of view, the one reason that what we will give is Nokia did not have that digital experience, right? They did not have that smartphone feature. But the people who worked in Nokia comes out as saying that even if we had this kind of smartphone features, Nokia would have fallen because of this tech debt problem that they had. That's a observation that Mike Kirsten is trying to put across. Microsoft is altogether a different example, just the exact opposite of how Nokia or Equifax did not work. So when Bill Gates was leading the team, that was the time when they were trying to come out with this IE Explorer, and Netscape even came much before that, and it was some kind of a risk. From Microsoft's standpoint, how do I handle this Netscape competitor? So they came out with, they clearly came out with this kind of handling this risk of in another 2 years or 1 year, how am I going to handle this competition? That what we were talking about, this transformation zone, right? That is how they tried to talk about. So what the risk that what they found was there are other competitors that are coming in. I need to come out with a similar feature like Netscape. There are a lot of defects or quality issues that first the IE had. But Bill Gates was clear that let us have some kind of a minimum viable product. Let's first launch it, fully understanding that there are shortcomings here. Let's fight with Netscape, handle that competition. So what he did was launch that IE product. Then he understood we are not going to withstand this. Now, first milestone was we launched this product. Now we'll have to handle this tech debts. Now he handled the risk. Now we will to handle the quality part in terms of defects. Now we will to handle in terms of tech debts. So he wrote a memo saying the value stream was, the team level was 3,500 team members. He came out with a memo saying that from here on, once the Internet Explorer feature was launched, from here on, for a particular time period, we are not going to launch any feature. Everybody are going to look at these tech debts. Everybody are going to look at tech defects. No, we are not going to launch any feature from this IE perspective. So the first they tried to be disruptive offensive in terms of handling a risk. And then they started looking at tech debts. They were able to handle it, fight it parallelly. So that's the point that I'm trying to make. Similar to how he tries to emulate how a production line works, right? If there is a car that is, if there is a, say for example, there is a cycle time that needs to be in 20 seconds. If that is not happening, or some defect that has happened in a car in the assembly line, automatically the car would, the metrics would showcase, the production line will stop, the car will come to the rework area. Everybody will jump in because it is transparent, right? So that is what we are talking about in terms of these value streams, flow items, flow distributions. We are able to easily detect where the problem is. That's what we are trying to look at. And the whole idea is not to repeat and take lessons from how the downfall happened for Nokia or Equifax. So Microsoft had an example where they had these clear value streams. First, they tried to concentrate on giving a minimal viable product and quickly making a right shift, tactical shift in making sure they don't have any quality issues or tech debts. That's how they looked at. That's how we'll have to look at in terms of tracking disruptions. So we were looking at this. Shall we move it? Any discussion points here, Tilla? All right. So we looked at this problem statement, right? Where we did not talk about in terms of solutions. So the first, at least first try to focus on this problem statement, right? Whatever we work is not directly correlating with the value that the value stream tries to put. The architecture is not supporting. Once the software scales, when for a 2-member team or a 10-member team, 50-member team, it's fine. But once it moves high, where the productivity will decline. For that, what is the solution? First, try to identify value that what we talk about. Then come out with value streams. What are the sequence of temps? Then you have a clear flow items. Then you have a clear flow distribution. How much amount of feature that I'm going to look at, how much number of defects that I'm going to fix. It's a clear plan there. Then use this flow metrics that what we are talking up in terms of flow time. Every 70 seconds, a car comes out. If it is not coming out, there's something wrong. They look at the dashboard. Similarly, you have this flow metrics here. Why is it taking time? Why is it this team? Why is this feature taking this much amount of time? That we will come out with this flow time, right? We were talking about this flow time right from the start till the end. So that will take. So all these kind of flow metrics will be able to. It is easy for us to connect the business outcomes with the flow value, and whatever that work we do, that should directly correlate with your the value business outcome. So that's the point that we are trying to make. So once you follow these kind of value streams, flow items, use these flow metrics, it is easy for us to make sure that architecture correlates with your value stream. I take a pause here before we move to the next problem statement. Shall we move it? All right.
Yes.
Now comes the second problem statement, where we were talking about you will have different value streams, different revenue models, different cycles, right? One value stream needs to collaborate with the other value streams, meaning I had n number of tools. Developer used a tool. Within the developer, Java developer will use a JIT as a tool. Microsoft developer will use a VSS tool. So similarly, each kind of domain developers will use. Testers will use different tools, Selenium. In developer community itself for Agile, say Jira, some teams will use Jira, some teams will use TFS for agility. Operations team will use some kind of tools. Leadership teams will use some type of tools. So I have n number of data stores. I cannot ask them to go ahead with single tool. Say for example, a company like Microsoft, they have a rule that they have internalized tools. So it is easy for them to collect data. The problem here is, how do I collect all this data? This is a different data source. ServiceNow is a different data store. Jira is a different. Workday is a different. TFS is a different. JIT is a different data store. I use n number of tools. Each one gives some kind of an information. To come out with this flow metrics, right? I need this information from all these tools, right? How long does it take? How long does it take for a defect from the start to end? How long does it wait? So for all this, I need either some will be using Jira, some will be TFS. So I need to collect this data, right? So because if we don't have a right modeling way, we have to live with n number of tools. It's going to be heterogeneous. We got to live with it. But if we don't integrate it the right way, then we will not be able to get these kind of metrics that what we are looking at in terms of business outcomes or in terms of all this flow time, flow down. So for that, we need to have an integration model. So we need to have some kind of a business integration model, business intelligence integration model, where we consolidate all this data so that we come out with data points in terms for this flow load, flow time to the leadership team, and for us to understand where we lag. So irrespective of how many tools you use, we have to come out with a solution where we integrate some kind of have some kind of a business intelligence model where we integrate all these data stores so that we come out with a data dashboard, just like how the metrics are there in the car production system. So we need some kind of an integration that happens through some kind of business intelligence or some kind of way where we'll have to correlate, consolidate all these data points so that we come out with this flow metrics. So we got to have the right integration model for it to make sure there is no disconnect between one value stream and the other. There'll be one Microsoft team. There'll be another Java team which works on some other value stream. So there should be some connect here. If we don't have this integration model happens, then what happens is that there'll be some guy who is trying to do some kind of a manual data entry, which may go erroneous, and we will not be having real-time data here. So the point to handle this disconnect between value streams is you need to have an integration layer, a business integration layer, where these data stores or these databases are consolidated so that you get this correct metrics. Shall we move to the next takeaway? All right. The third thing was we were looking at software value streams are not linear. They are not sequence of steps. Each value stream has to correlate with the other. That's the point that we are talking about. So this is what is the complete flow framework that let's focus on this integration model. So this is what we were talking about, right? This is some tool. This is another tool. These tools needs to be integrated. So this is what we are trying to look at. So once we integrate these tools, one will be VFS, one will be Jira, another will be Workday. Some tools, each organization will have hundreds amount of tools. So the first bottom layer is called integration model, where all these data stores needs to be integration. You should have some kind of a business integration. That we call it as connectivity index. So the amount of ratio, so you should have some measure of how much. So it's a kind of an iterative incremental way. It is not possible to integrate it all together, but the whole idea is the end state, all these data stores needs to be integrated. Any tool that we and we got to have consolidated data. Now, why do we need this consolidation? Is from a business standpoint of view, when a feature is being born, first time he will not be using Jira or TFS, right? He'll say, for example, he uses a tool like Workday. He tries to come out with some kind of a requirement. Workday is a tool where some requirements are being entered in. So he will try to enter that. So that is, say, for example, Workday, there is a requirement that is being entered. Now, okay, the business has entered a requirement. The team will consider that as a feature. Jira is one tool, or take some tool where that feature is being broken into user stories and the team works. So work requirement is in Workday, which is what from a business standpoint of view, or what from a leadership standpoint of view, they'll be looking at the Workday. They will not be looking at the team level of how it looks at. So somewhere there needs to be a mapping. So where do I integrate this? The answer is, for this question is, from a requirement, this goes to another tool. That tool, the feature is being developed. From a business standpoint of view, I need to know at what state this feature is. From a business standpoint of view, or from a leadership standpoint of view, I will be knowing the state only from the Jira, that what the development community is trying to. That is the reason why we have to integrate it. So a defect will be raised by, say, from a business. He will not be using he will use a ServiceNow incident ticket. So this ServiceNow incident ticket should be mapped to a defect in Jira. Am I making sense here? Are you able to understand why we need to integrate between tools? The first thing that what we were talking about is we have to speak the same language. The business has to speak the same language. The business or the operations team is not going to use the same tool what the development team is doing. He will be raising a defect or a requirement in, say, in A tool. The team will be working on a defect or on a feature which is mapping to a requirement on a B tool. But these two tools needs to be integrated. The information needs to be got so that we have a dashboard or a metrics to understand whether this requirement or a feature at what level it is. It has taken 60 days for me to deliver this feature. Why is it taken 60 days? Where am I right? How many defects are there? Am I making sense here? So we are making use of heterogeneous tools, and there is a need for all these data stores to be integrated. Do you agree with that point? Am I making sense here? So each one will be using a different tool altogether. Now, we cannot dictate terms in terms of business has to also use the same tool, right? For a different reason altogether, they'll be using a different tool. So the point here is, at the bottom layer of this integration model, first I need to integrate this tool so that I consolidate data. Are we clear until this one? So I've just given you an example of how a business will pick another one tool and use, how a developer community may pick another tool. But at the end, there needs to be some kind of an integration so that you get metrics out of it. So there needs to be some integration that is happening. That is what is happening in integration layer, the bottom layer. Am I making sense here? Yes, no? Did we understand this intention of integrating between tools? Or you want me to repeat it again? Yes, no? Anybody? So you want me to repeat?
It would be good.
I didn't get you. You want me to repeat or?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, only once you understand this problem statement, you will be able to realize what is the value. Let's take this. Let's not focus on the solution, but are we clear with these three problem statements first?
Yes.
So can you put it in on your own words of what this problem statement is trying to tell you? Just try. That's there's no right or wrong. Others can pitch in. Can you just give it a try?
So from this, I can visualize that what is the value stream of whatever we are giving to the client. So how we are mapping it. So whatever the deliverables are, how we are mapping the value stream with this. So this is the...
Yeah. So whatever work that we do, how is it directly connecting with your value that the value stream is producing? So for that to happen, your architecture should support. So when you say architecture, your whatever coding that you do, that should support, that should enhance to make sure that you generate value.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. That is the first thing. This is the problem statement. Yeah, go ahead. You were saying something.
So like I am a product owner. So right now, if I am trying to map the deliverables with the value stream, so I have to understand the what are the feature percentage we are giving into the sprint, how it is adding the value to the customers in the in work breakdown structure, and how means what kind of values we are producing out of those deliverables.
Exactly.
So this is what I understood right now from this.
That is the flow item or flow distribution. But this problem statement is, I have a problem here. We'll have to understand what is the problem. Most of the time, whatever we try to develop is not directly correlating with your value. So like what you said, any work that we should that the developers do should fall into any of these four items, which is understood by both the development community and the business. That's the point thing. The problem that here it is trying to look at is when your architecture is not supporting to the value, it is a waste. Though I have this kind of metrics, though I have this flow items to measure, I all have all this. But if my architecture doesn't support, if the developer is not working, if the architecture doesn't support that, so I make a change, simple change I make. So any change I make, we talk about always there is a variation in requirements. So the simple example that I would take is the architecture doesn't change if I am going to do a language change, right? It is just a properties file. For French, you have some property file. For English, you have some property file. So you have a common way of making changes so that the changes are minimum. So my architecture or the work that I do should directly be proportional to the value stream value. That's the point that you have to. So for that to happen, like what you said, you need to have flow items, you need to have the right kind of flow distribution. There should be a common understanding of business outcomes, and whatever daily work the development community is doing should be always mapping to the intended value.
Yes.
So that is what we are trying to look at. This is the first thing. Second thing is, do you agree with we use 100 tools?
Yes.
N number of tools.
Yes.
Yes, so business will be using the example that what I was trying to use to generate a requirement. First, the business will be using a requirement service now. It takes any tool. For that, for you to work, you will be using some other tool like TFS or Jira or Agility, some tool will be. Somewhere down the line, this needs to be connected, right?
Yes.
If I don't connect these tools, will I be able to get these metrics?
No.
So that's the point that they are
correlation should be there.
So that's what you're doing. Any questions here, team? You can just jump in. So that's what we are trying to make. So the problem statement is, I have n number of tools. That is the problem. I need to have a right strategy so that I get the metrics. So what he's trying to emulate here is, any problem, immediately they go to the dashboard in the production time line to see where is the problem. Am I having the dashboard in my software delivery? This is the dashboard that what we are trying to look at. This is the dashboard that what we are looking. So for that to realize, we are using n number of tools. So there needs to be some kind of an consolidation that happens so that all this community are able to get that data. Till now, are we clear?
Yes.
Now comes the third thing. The point that I just cannot use this linear way of looking, because there is always a variation. There is a planning that change, design changes. So for that to happen, I need to use this flow framework. The consolidation that what we are talking about is the first layer. Tools needs to be connected. Are we clear until this way, the bottom layer?
Yes.
Okay. Tools needs to be connected. Then the next question is, why do I need to connect tools? So that I come out with this metrics. Okay. How do I come out with this metrics? Now comes this activity model. Here, there is a workflow for Jira. I have a start. There is a workflow for Jira. I have a start till the end. For ServiceNow, there will be a different workflow. So this ServiceNow workflow has to be mapped with Jira Mapflow. Do you agree? Only then I can consolidate it there. So let's take a simple example. The box is a feature here. This is a bug. Let's take something like requirement. This is something like a risk. Okay, simple thing. So I have to integrate a requirement that was entered in ServiceNow to a feature that is entered in Jira.
Okay.
That is what is happening here. For a defect, a feature will have n number of defects. This feature is connected to a requirement. This feature is connected to a defect. So each artifact or each workflow model has to be integrated with all the other tools that what we work on. That is what we are trying to do here. The whole point here of integrating things, I need to come out with flow metrics. For that to happen, I need to requirement is being entered in one tool that has to be mapped to tool B. This has to be mapped to tool C. That is what we are trying to do here. Are we clear here?
Yes, yes. I have one question.
Go ahead.
That this activity model, so to come up with the actual numbers, then we do have calculations over here also, right? In activity model.
So for that to happen, sorry to interrupt you, let me finish it. So for that, here we are just trying to integrate. For this mapping is what we are trying to come out with some kind of, I'm just giving you an example of a business intelligence model or some integration middle time model, where you have to have a system where you literally need to map. ServiceNow requirement needs to be mapped with Jira feature. ServiceNow requirement needs to be mapped with Jira defect. This has to be mapped. We are talking about cost. For each value stream, there'll be a cost. That will be there in Workday. How many commits or how many deployments that we need. So for a feature, how many deployments are made? That I may get it from JIT. So there is some kind of a mapping that happens. That mapping happens here at this middle layer. Sorry to interrupt. You had a question. Go ahead.
No, I was just trying to understand that now I got the mapping understanding. So now if I want to get the value numbers, like yes, the percentage of the this activity is working fine. So we have some percentage, right, where we need to attain that percentage of number. So do we have like the calculation metrics over here we need to make here with certain analogies and all those things, wherein we can come out with the numbers?
That logic, so now you have mapped here. This layer you have mapped here. Now you will be able to know for a particular feature, how long does it take from start to, right? You'll be able to get that information, right?
Yes.
Right? You will be able to get how many features one team is doing from a business standpoint of view, because it is being integrated to service now. He will be able to, from a business, how many features are being delivered. Why is this team delivering less number of features? Why is this team? So because of this mapping that happens here, the business will be able to get that data. The development community, leadership team, everybody are in the same page.
Okay.
Because of this mapping.
Got it.
Here we have just integrated. Now here we are trying to integrate each workflow model, each artifact. A feature in Jira might be different from a feature in TFS. One team might, so it will be the same value stream. One will be working on Jira, one will be working on TFS. I need to map that, right? To get that flow time.
Yes.
So that happens in this second layer.
Okay. Got it.
Anybody has questions here? The third one is what we already saw is value streams. Each value stream needs to collaborate with the other. That happens through this activity model. This activity model happens because we have an data store integration that happens. So by this, we are trying to solve these three problems. That's the point that we are trying to make. So I wanted to quickly again say, just interrupt me if you are not understood. The whole funda of this value streams is all about this. Whatever work that we do, the architecture needs to support the value that we are trying to produce. So any changes that we do should directly correlate with it. So if we are only looking at these 4 items, why is my feature level down? That I'll be able to understand clearly because we are all on the same page. We are going to use only these 4 items. That's the point of the first thing. Second thing is n number of value streams are there that needs to be integrated. Third thing is it's not a linear process. Each value stream needs to correlate with the other. For that, for all these 3 problem statements, this is the framework that what we are trying to look at is we have to live with n number of tools that needs to be integrated. Just by integration, we are not going to solve. Again, a feature needs to be integrated with some artifact in Workday. Feature needs to be integrated with TFS, some artifact. So each artifact needs to integrate with the other artifact of another tool. You will have a defect in ServiceNow. The same defect is there in Jira. Am I making sense here? So that needs to be mapped. Why do I need to map that? So that I get this flow metrics. I will be able to find out how much percentage of features I do, what time it takes from me to start to finish, how much is the waiting time, how much is the efficiency, how much is the value added work, how much is the non-value added work. So all that we are trying to look at from this flow framework. That's the whole point here.
And how is this alignment index working?
So I forgot to tell this. So this, again, this is the ratio. So here we are just connecting tools. We are not connecting artifacts. So this connectivity index is the ratio or measure of how many tools have we connected. That is the connectivity index. The more the ratio, the more the connectivity. That's the point. Here it is just the connecting between Jira and TFS, connecting Jira and Workday, connecting TFS with some other tool. That is the connectivity. This measure, because it's not a one-time activity. So it's a progressive incremental activity. We just cannot, in n number of tools will be there. We just cannot integrate that. So it's an incremental improvement activity. So connectivity index will tell me how many tools I have integrated. It's a kind of measure of how many tools. Traceability metric index is one artifact of one tool is mapped with other artifact of the other tool. I may have integrated defect of ServiceNow with TFS, but I would have not integrated defect with Jira. So that traceability index will give me a measure of how well one artifact of one tool is integrated with the other tool's artifact. That is traceability index. Alignment index is one value stream is always connected with the other value stream, right? So that connectivity is alignment index. How one value stream is related or connected with the other value stream. Okay. Did I answer your question?
Yes.
So all this is kind of pinned down. For this connectivity from one value stream to connect with another value stream, I need this. For this to happen, I need this. So the basic funda is you first need to understand what is the value. Customer needs to define the value. You come out with kind of value streams. The whole idea is we are trying to emulate a model of a lean manufacturing model. We have a value stream. I just cannot live with this lean manufacturing model because I need to make these changes. This is how I'm going to make these changes altogether. And this is the flow framework. By this, I will be able to get the objective of measuring productivity by all these metrics in terms of business outcomes or by this flow metrics.
Got it.
Any questions? So I have picked up from this. So base of this funda of how SAFe framework works is based on this. So if we understand this base thing, then SAFe framework will be much easier. So SAFe framework has picked this flow framework, and SAFe uses these value streams, uses these kind of metrics altogether, uses this kind of handling risk, the proposition that what we talked about, these 4 zones, right? Horizon, SAFe uses this. So the point here I'm trying to make is SAFe has used the fundamental block of flow framework. SAFe typically uses this framework. So this is quite an important thing. And my question has come out with this book, this try finding time to read this book of why we need to make a shift from way of working from a project to product. The answer is I cannot just look at the whole idea of way of working in project is I only look at objectives in terms of budget and time. But here we look at in terms of business outcomes where it is no more a black box, it is transparent, just like how a production assembly line works, but you are making minor tweaks in how a lean manufacturing works. We are coming out with value streams and we are having the flow metrics here and how to handle those. So this book clearly explains, and this basic fundamental flow framework is the one SAFe framework uses. And again, the point that I'm trying to make here is just because we use Agile or just because we use DevOps, it's not a kind of a silver line. Like what you said, Nokia was a poster boy of using Agile. We were trying to look at proxy metrics in terms of how many are being Agile trained or how many have completed the certification or how many deployments are made. Just because we have DevOps or have Agile, that's not a perfect recipe for success. The point that what Mike comes up with is we got to build in that transparency, have a flow, bring in the transparency, make sure that the business and the development community speaks the same language. That's the most funda of having this. Why we need to shift from project to product, which was not happening in project, but this flow framework helps us to do this. I have done. Any questions? Any discussion points? We can always discuss. All right. If no, then we're good to close. Thanks for having me. Thanks for your time. Thanks a lot. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.